Well, Amnesty International says a Boko Haram attack in Nigeria was so catastrophic that it can be seen in satellite photos. Here are the images released by the organization, which says this is indisputable and shocking evidence of the scale of last week's attack. Boko Haram raided the towns in the northeastern part of the country. Amnesty International estimates that 3,700 buildings were destroyed. Some reports say as many as 2,000 people were killed. Well, Daniel Eyre is the organization's researcher for West Africa, and he joins us now with more from London. Daniel, thanks for being with us. Let's start by pulling up those satellite images once again. Take us through exactly what we're looking at here.
Sure. So what we have is two sets of photographs, one taken the day immediately before the attack. And in it, you can see in quite high resolution, first of all, you see vegetation and trees colored in red. And then in between those trees, you can see people's homes, their shops, their places of worship. Now, in the second set of imagery, what we see is that much of the vegetation has been destroyed, and also more than 3,700 buildings have been damaged or completely destroyed. One of the images that shows both Baga and the nearby town of Doronbaga shows, highlighted in yellow, each of the buildings that has been damaged or destroyed. And you can see that Doronbaga has almost been completely destroyed in this attack, making it probably the first time Boko Haram has done something like this, as well as being possibly the deadliest attack by the group so far.
And I'd imagine you were saying that this is a deliberate attack on civilians. Why is Boko Haram ramping up its attacks now?
That's right. This is a real escalation of the conflict, but an escalation that we've seen developing over the last 12 months. In 2014, we believe that more than 4,000 civilians were killed in Boko Haram attacks. And in the last 6 months, Boko Haram has tried to carve out a territory for itself in northeastern Nigeria. So they've taken over more than 20 towns, just like Baga, in a series of armed attacks in which they've killed civilians. So these killings amount to war crimes and crimes against humanity. And one of the other things we've seen in Baga town and elsewhere is that Boko Haram has been particularly violent in order to attempt to punish civilians for their perceived collaboration with government forces. So Baga town is one of many that created a civilian joint task force. This is a state-sponsored militia that worked with the government. They went with the military on operations to attack Boko Haram. And we believe that one of the reasons that the death toll was so high is because Boko Haram was attempting to punish the community for that.
Daniel, about the death toll, there has been confusion over how many people were killed in those towns. Your reports say it could be as many as 2,000. The government of Nigeria is reporting about 150 people dead. Why do you think there's such a large discrepancy there?
Well, I can't speak to how the military got to the figure of 150, but what we've done at Amnesty is that, well, personally, I've spoken to many eyewitnesses, people who were in Baga and the surrounding towns at the time of the attack. And from these witness testimonies, we've been able to build up a coherent picture of what happened that day. And by speaking to people in different locations around the town, and also who fled in different directions after the attack, we get a sense of where the killings happened and roughly how many people were killed in different locations. And that allows us to say that hundreds were killed by Boko Haram in the attack. However, it's too soon for a precise death toll. The area is still under Boko Haram control, so no one can go back there to count or to bury the dead. And furthermore, people that have fled the violence, they're still searching for their missing relatives and trying to get assistance in secure areas. And so they haven't been able to compile lists of the missing and dead yet. So that's why we're saying hundreds rather than giving a specific figure.
Daniel, how confident are you that Nigeria's government is able to handle or stop these Boko Haram attacks?
The trend so far has been one of escalation. These attacks in northeast Nigeria now happen on an almost daily basis. So that's not just Boko Haram attacking towns like this and taking control over them. We've also seen Boko Haram using suicide bomb attacks to terrorize civilians in relatively safer areas. So the problem only seems to be getting worse. What we've called on the government to do is to do more to protect the civilians in the northeast. Now, whether that's changes in the way the Nigerian military conducts its operations or through international support, we believe that something does need to change, and that's really a question for the Nigerian government.
Well, Daniel, I want to thank you very much for your time and your insight. We really appreciate it. Daniel
Thank you for having
Eyre
me.
is with Amnesty International.